Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, dear friends. Welcome to the monthly webinar for local governments and municipal authorities constituency towards COP29, the Conference of Parties of the UN Climate Negotiations, to be held in Baku in November. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, and I'm facilitating this webinar in my capacity as the focal point of the LGMA constituency. As our traditional practice, we are just giving 30 seconds to all participants to settle down so that they have a smooth run of the show. And then we will also take through housekeeping and other uh, information about how we run the show in terms of the agenda as well. Thanks for your patience. Uh, we will just start to quickly. Give a second. Good. I think we're more or less reached to our level of participation in terms of our audience and participants. I think we can comfortably kick off. Once again, welcome to the October webinar, monthly webinar of the LGMA constituency. Today, we have a very busy agenda and we have a number of partner speakers providing inputs. We'll do our best to make sure the time is managed wisely, and therefore we also have slightly adjusted our slides, so we have limited the introductory pages. We know most of our participants are familiar. In case we will run short so that everyone is on the same page, even they are joining for the first time. These sessions are recorded, and you will have access to the presentation and the recordings tomorrow. And those who would like to contribute, we would encourage you to wait until the end of the webinar, but presentation because we really have a Q&A at the end. But in case any burning issues during the topics that is covered, you can type in the chat box and we can try to respond. As I said, we will take through the background. We will focus on our position, which will be presented by my colleague Ariel Dekovic, head of communications of ICLE World Secretariat, but also leading the communications working group of the LGMA constituency, as well as the drafting committee. Um, we will hear from colleagues from GCOM, Asif and Agat about the CHAMP roundtable and other relevant outcomes from New York. We have a number of colleagues who have attended the September and October negotiations. I will not count all of them, but we will have a diversity of our colleagues joining us. Um, I will take a bit more time in the agenda for COP29 delegation, how we will manage ourselves, and we will spend some time in our pavilion. My colleague Johanna from ICLE events team will lead us there. And at the end of the session, as usual, our practice, we will hear from our colleagues from biodiversity teams. I really assume Ingrid will be joining us, or her colleagues, Ivana, to take us through the Kali preparation, the COP16. With this in mind, let's rapidly progress. We are an abbreviation of LGMA, but in fact, we are the voice of subnational cities, towns, regions, states, all the diversity of governments below the national or federal governments. And since '95, we are connected to the process. We try to influence the negotiations, the outcomes. We contribute to the setting the action agenda since Paris Agreement. We collaborate with the presidencies because they also have their priorities or initiatives. We want to make sure there is a continuity. And of course, we always connect ourselves or engage ourselves with the friends of multi-level action, which are the nations who support multi-level action or urbanization, both in the negotiations, but also implementation at the national level. We are a proud and diverse community, around 60, more than 60 accredited organizations, but we also have so many partners who do not necessarily accredit themselves to the universities, but we help them engage through our kind of tools like the webinars you have seen in monthly, or the monthly bulletins or mailings, updates that we share internally, so that we are united and we reflect our voices as appropriate. This is we are talking about 30 plus years of our engagement in this process. Obviously, there were ups and downs. We were excited at the beginning because this is a Rio Convention. This is a Rio Convention legacy from Earth Summit, which was the first time local authorities were recognized as a major group. But in the UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol, it was a bit difficult. After that recognition, we were not engaged in the UNFCCC and Kyoto. So the first 10 years was relatively for us a bit low profile. We were on alone, and we were not too much engaged in this UNFCCC process. But we started to gradually raise our voice because on the way to Copenhagen in 2009, there was an expectation that a new era of climate action would be designed. And there we said that this time they should recognize, engage, and empower us. Copenhagen did not reach its goals. Therefore, we were even more aggressive because we knew that multilateral processes will empower local and regional governments, advocacy, and action as well. With that in mind, we have elevated our work from Cancun until Paris, and that resulted number of initiatives, but most importantly, the recognition of all importance of all levels of governance, Paris Agreement, and after that, we literally exploded in our initiatives, processes, partnerships, which demonstrate that the moment the UN process includes us, we respond even more aggressively in terms of our offers, and we reached to Glasgow. Multi-level action was for the first time in the preamble of a UNFCCC decision, and with starting from Sharm el Sheikh, we have introduced the concept of urbanization, and we reached to Dubai with Champ as one of the most ambitious initiatives. But also inside the consensus, we have a paragraph 161 which urges parties for multi-level action, along with other references throughout the text on adaptation and even in the direct sub-national access into the loss and damage fund. So we know Dubai kicked off a new era. It really introduced a holistic and ambitious climate action. But of course, this depends on how these new NDCs will reflect and build on this. They would be presented in Brazil in 2025. Therefore, this year is one of the most important years because the infrastructure we will build, the transition we will make from Dubai to Brazil will be defining the success of this new NDCs. So it is an important year. It's not a peak year as we have heard before or experience like Dubai. There will be definitely be some different modes of engagement, but it's still a very important year. Every year there is leadership from the host countries. In between, they hand over to the incoming presidency, and we are very happy that we work extensively with all levels of leaders in the Azeri incoming presidency, from Mukhtar Babayev till Shahryar, but all diversity of their teams. And we were very happy to see our leaders also engage in their advisory board as well. Throughout the year, we connect to global agendas like G7, G20. We connect to the UN and UNFCCC agendas, and we also develop our own initiatives, meetings, processes like Innovate for Cities or Daring Cities, or our climate weeks in different cities around the world, including New York City, London, and now with Baku, the latest example. We are in the last 100 meters to COP. A majority of the events have been concluded. The remainings are the ones that are coming from G7, Urbanization Ministerial, Cairo. Of course, we will hear from Kali, but most of the negotiations of the UNFCCC are more or less concluded. So it's time now to prepare ourselves so that our voices are fully reaching to the negotiators at home when they decide their priorities for COP29 in the capitals. And that's why having such a diverse position of LGMA as early as September is very valuable for us. Now I will hand over to Ariel in terms of how we will move from endorsing our, adopting our position, but now endorsement and dissemination. Ariel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eunice. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. So I have the joy of presenting the COP29 joint position for LGMA. Really such a great collaborative work by many, many organizations who are part of the LGMA to get what I think is a pretty effective document in terms of what we're trying to do. So we've designed a 4-part kind of toolkit or group of documents. The first is the position itself, which is very short. The idea there was that that is really meant for all audiences that we're trying to reach, whether it's the negotiators themselves, who are, of course, our main audience, but then really every level who is going to be interacting with them, whether it's other delegates within who are attending to the parties or the media. It's a really digestible document. And then we follow on with the three other guidance documents. These are really meant for the parties. Or they each get into the weeds of the kind of why and how of the three main asks that we're asking for, down to the UN level language that could go into the negotiated outcomes. So hopefully, by creating a position that really is designed to address the needs of our different audience members, we can have a more effective way of reaching people. That being said, now is where the rubber meets the road and actually getting this into the right hands, getting the folks who need to hear this position, hearing it, and that's where all of you come in. So I have two main asks for you as we move towards COP. The first is that you go and download the position and these guidance documents as a part of the LGMA. Your understanding of it, your kind of ownership of it is critical to the success of the position. And I'm going to put the link in just a moment here in the chat. And then my second ask is that after you've downloaded it, you consider endorsing the position. Here is the link for both downloading and endorsing. And obviously, the more organizations, the more networks we have that do endorse the document, the more united and strong our voice becomes, and we can really present that moving forward. We've had about 10 endorsements so far, along with the, I think there's 10 or 12 organizations who helped co-write the position. So we have quite a number who have already embraced it. And then my third and final ask is for you to think through what your role could be in advancing the position. So if you are a network or represent a network of local and regional governments, how are you going to distribute these to your members? If you are a representative from a local regional government, how are you going to take this position? Do you have an opportunity to bring this position to your national representatives so that they're aware of it? So what is kind of your individual capacity, and really how well are you positioned to be able to help us to advance this position? So those are kind of the three main asks for you today. There will be more coordination, of course, as we get closer to COP on how we do advance the position and all of the places where it will appear and make its way back into the work that we're doing collaboratively together. But this is really the first step of that joint work. So with that, I'll hand things back over to Eunice.
Thank you, Ariel, to you and all the drafting committee and also the comms team to elevate our voices and make it effectively reach to the audience as appropriate. And you will hear in a couple of minutes how this position has already been very helpful for us when our delegations were interacting with a number of UNFCCC related negotiations. So you may remember we are covering what has happened since our last webinar, which was the middle of September, was the last time we had our discussions. And in between, the most important thing was the Climate Week. We knew it would be a combination of the Summit of the Future and Climate Week related activities. For us, there were two main agendas. The first time, the champ endorsers since Dubai were coming at the minister and mayor level through the dialogue, which is one of the sixth commitment that they have signed up in the champ pledge. I assume we would have colleagues from GCOM who would take us through that discussions. But Amelia, I'm not sure whether you were assigned for that one as well, because in the morning it was Agat who presented, or Asif, or do you have any update on that?
I'm not, I wasn't planning to speak on this, but
Okay.
I can briefly speak about the breakfast, which
Well, let's continue. Yeah, we go ahead with the breakfast, and then I compliment on the the roundtable, and then also especially on the COP29 event. I'm happy that my colleague Leah from Habitat is here. Then I can easily hand over to her so that she can make the connection. And Leah, I hope it would be okay for you because it's a bit earlier than what I told you in the messages. So let's start with the champ breakfast.
Perfect. So thank you so much to lots of people on this call that helped to make the Champ Breakfast happen at New York Climate Week. This was really an opportunity to bring together subnational government leaders with climate experts to discuss progress on Champ to date and really just try and explain the opportunity a bit more. We had really good representation. We had 5 mayors. We had 13 subnational leaders. And we were also joined by Selwyn Hart and Lawrence Tubiana, who really helped to set the scene on climate sort of ahead of the week. And yeah, it was good discussion and really helpful to do that ahead of the meeting the next day, the high-level political dialogue.
So actually, this was, of course, let's remember, it was a commitment of the nation. So the logic of this dialogue was that the nations share updates at the ministerial level on what has been achieved since they have signed up. And of course, with this experience sharing, we can also prepare what to bring to the COP29 in Baku. I think that was the whole spirit. It was very nice that we have been joined with the 2 high-level champions at the opening and closing from Dubai, Emirates, Razan Al Mubarak, and Nigar Al Qadrai. We had UNFCCC Executive Secretary Simon Steele, and I assume the fullest can reflect around 15 nations at the ministerial level or equivalent level, as well as pairs of ministers and mayors or ministers and governors, like Korea, like Sierra Leone, like Morocco, like US. They were really nice diversity of opportunities and reflections about how rich this community is. But of course, there was also new announcements, and particularly we have welcomed Finland as one of the first endorsers of CHAMP in 2024. The mayor of Turku, Mina Arve, have actually presented the official announcement at the breakfast meeting the day before, but together with the Finnish climate envoy, they were both at the table. On the way to New York, Mayor Arve also recorded a video message with the Minister of Environment, and she followed up further with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Finland and business community. So that is exactly reflecting how local leaders can make a change at the national level, and they can benefit from this collaboration. So I think that was a nice practice. The day after, the UK was also announced, thanks to the leadership of the colleagues in the UK, including C40, Core City UK, and other partners. That was really a nice segue. And in between, of course, during New York, we also had enjoyed the announcement from the incoming president COP29, and which was one of the side events inside the Summit of the Future at the UN. And our colleague Leah, as on behalf of Habitat, has been already been instrumental, not just on the event, but the whole journey of COP29 preparations for the urban agenda. Leah, the floor is yours to describe about what was the announcement, but also you can also briefly connect how it will feed into COP29, because we also have a discussion in the next couple of minutes, but maybe you can first refer to the New York experience.
Sure. Thanks so much, Yunus, and hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Nairobi internet has been a little bit tricky today, so if I get kicked out, please do bear with me. Happy to provide a quick overview of what was discussed in New York. So as Yunus already said, this was an official side event, the Summit of the Future, hosted by the COP29 presidency, ICLEI and UN Habitat, where they presented their vision on urban and multi-sectoral and multi-level climate action. Brought together several representatives from the UN, from the finance community, national governments, and mayors to discuss this vision. Very well attended, despite the difficulties of getting people into the UN. Also spontaneous interventions from the floor from national governments on the importance of that topic, which is, of course, always very welcome. Maybe just to say a couple of words, what the COP presidency did there is also present their vision, not only for the overall day for the 20th of November on urbanization, on the urbanization part, but also present their MAP declaration, which I think is something that you've all heard of before, the multi-sectoral action pathways for sustainable and healthy cities. I hope I got that right, but I can put the full name in the chat. So it's a declaration that's supposed to come out of the ministerial meeting. It's supposed to bring attention to the topics of sustainable urbanization, sustainable urban development, at a COP level. It's encouraging encouraging parties to work with their cities, in their cities, on a variety of different topics through a variety of different mechanisms. I do want to say it is currently framed as a declaration and not as an initiative. That's a very, very important distinguishment here. So a declaration meaning bringing attention to this at COP, of course, with the hope that this will trickle down into national governments and encourage them to take further action through initiatives and pledges that they have been part of in the past. So it's hopefully an instrument that we collectively can use to bring attention to this important topic at a higher level. One thing that I do want to bring, well, actually, there's 3 things in that declaration that will be relevant moving forward. The one thing is that the COP presidency is calling for, encouraging stronger links between COPs and WWOOFs and the World Environment Day, of course, also because Azerbaijan is going to be the host of both the World Environment Day and the World Urban Forum in 2026, which is, I think, something that we can collectively stand behind and in making sure we can connect our narratives better. The second thing is encouraging stronger collaboration between different financing institutions and partners to make sure that more money is getting into cities, with cities, and that more projects will be realized in and with cities on climate action. And the third thing, which I'm personally really excited about, is the Continuity Coalition, where the COP presidency is trying to rally the COP26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 presidencies, so UK, Egypt, UAE, Azerbaijan, and Brazil, together with UN Habitat to make sure that we can learn from past presidencies on the urban issue and multi-level issue, and encouraging future COP presidencies to take up the urban and multi-level climate action issue as part of their climate agenda and make it an integral part of their COPs. So far, really strong support from presidencies on that. It looks very likely that we'll be able to get this through in a letter of intent, so to say, form by COP29, which is something that the COP29 presidency has been very keen on, is that topic of continuity and seeing themselves as a presidency that's connecting the past with the future. So I'll stop here and can talk a little bit more about ministerial meeting at a later point.
Indeed. Thanks, Leah. Colleagues, we also have during this event also announced our endorsement to this initiative, as well as the truce deal, which is the effort to introduce a truce during the COP period initiative, which was very unique and innovative by the Azerbaijan presidency, which we definitely need in those difficult times that we are suffering all together all around the world. These were the initiatives, presidency or champ, and now we're going to the negotiations. Obviously, in the negotiations, you have to follow the UN procedure. These are all the moments where we were participated as LGMA. We have nominated our representatives either in person or virtual, based on the expertise that they have been leading. Many of them are the ones who are coming from those working groups that we have created since the beginning of the year. We have 5 events actually over these a couple of weeks. There were some more events, but these were the ones that we could follow, because it's also a challenge in terms of financial resources, human resources, to follow all these meetings These are the ones, the advantages that some of them are in Baku, some of them in Sharm el-Sheikh, especially back to back. So that was an opportunity for us. I would like to start first with the Just Transition Work Program. Although calendar-wise, the Loss and Damage Board meeting was earlier, but Madeline is joining us shortly. So let's start with Just Transition Work Program, where LGMA was presented by Jasmine Burgos and Martha Stencil from C40.
Thank you very much, Yunus, and thank you for facilitating our engagement with the Just Transition Work Program. Maybe as just to set the scene, as some of you may know, the Just Transition Work Program is the first of its kind UNFCCC program that looks at just transition only, looking at the design and the implementation stages of programs and initiatives, with a mandate to be a space for best practice sharing and for knowledge sharing between parties, but also to provide recommendations to parties at COP. With that in mind, as C40 on behalf of the LGMA constituency, we've been engaging with the program since the beginning of the year. My colleague Jasmine was also participating in the first dialogue in Bonn that really looked at the design part of just transition strategies, including NDCs. The second dialogue in Sharm very much looked at the implementation part with focus on equitable solution targeting the groups typically underrepresented in different climate actions. The recent dialogue in Sharm was a very rich discussion, particularly thanks to a very interactive format of these Word Cafe tables. With Jasmine, we think we were able to demonstrate the important role that cities and other subnational governments play in the implementation of just transition programs, but also their role as key partners for national governments in implementing high-level national strategies. What we think was very well received and helped us sort of hone in on this message was sharing tangible case studies of what cities and subnational governments are actually delivering on the ground, and that helped national governments understand their role as those who are the closest level of government to the residents, workers, migrants, informal communities, informal workers. Cities and subnational governments are also the ones who have the key powers of critical climate sectors in their respective constituencies, and they have a good local understanding of the vulnerabilities and the local dynamics. So we are very happy that some of these messages were already echoed by many of the national governments, and hope to see that reflected in the informal report summary that will be published soon, and in the final report from the Just Transition Work Program this year, written down by the Secretariat. In terms of the next steps, what we are really hoping to achieve is to have a nomination of a mayor to attend the Just Transition Ministerial. It was already, Yunus and colleagues were able to achieve that last year, and we hope to have this opportunity as well to really circle back and zoom in on these messages and make sure that ministers and other high-level speakers at COP29 also hear these messages. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to share more resources and the different submissions that we've submitted throughout the year as well, if anyone is interested. Thank you, Yunus.
Thank you, Martha. Thanks for your support and leadership together with Jasmine. Let's immediately go to the previous discussion we had, which is the third meeting of the Loss and Damage Response Fund, where LGM was represented by Madeline from C40 on behalf of our working group. Madeline, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yunus, and thank you for all your support and assistance in this process. So colleagues, as many people will know, at COP28, there was a historic agreement to establish a fund for responding to loss and damage. That was advocacy work of many years, particularly by many small island developing states and global South advocates. The fund will be operationalized in the coming 12 months to 2 years. And at the moment, a board comprised of members of the UNFCCC parties is establishing all the necessary requirements for the fund to be operational. So that includes who governs the fund, and they have decided that the World Bank will act as the trustee for the fund. What does the fund cover? What type of support response is needed? Who can receive the funds, and how do they secure a additional funds to the funds that have already been pledged at COP28. They are doing this through board meetings. The third meeting just took place in Baku, where they also elected the executive director of the fund, who, as Eunice noted this morning, has previous history in the African Development Bank and the Middle East Development Banks, and is from Senegal and has been welcomed to that role. And now the board is going to have to tackle some really difficult issues over the coming months in their next board meetings, notably things like what status do local governments and other UNFCCC constituencies have as observers? Will there be an opportunity for direct access for local governments and communities to access funds, and so on and so forth? The good news is that when we represented the LGMA the other day at the fund board meeting, that we had very good responses from the board members who indicated it's very important for them that localization of the fund is possible, that the funds are directed to the most local level possible. But we have an ongoing challenge to make sure that is written into the way in which the board and the fund operates, because this really is a test case for MDB reform. As many people know, access by local governments, local communities to climate funds has historically been very challenging. The upcoming board meetings will be after COP. They will take place, the next two board meetings will take place in the Philippines, which will be the host country, and we're looking forward to working with Eunice, UCLG and colleagues to have ongoing strong representation on behalf of local governments at those board meetings. Thanks very much, Eunice.
Thanks, Madeleine, for your leadership here and your efforts. And as you said, this is exactly the example that you will never have to say that, oh, we won it and we can stay safe. We had celebrated in Dubai that direct subnational access was in the text, but then the modalities came up and we were not there, so we have to come back. So you will always have to be alert. You always have to build on your previous achievements and then strengthen it. Therefore, that's exactly the reason why a position of the LGMA Council in all elements of these negotiations is important, so that our colleagues can then advocate for it. And we will continue this work as well. As you said, it's a still new making era. It's an era that is in the making, so we have to be very active and alert there. These weeks we also had joined the meeting in Sharma on the BELEM work program for resilience indicators. Our colleagues, Climate Heritage Network and Regions 4 were representing us. They were not able to join us today, as far as I know. Salma is not here. But what I heard, there was very important. Salma is here. I see just her in the speakers list. Okay, Salma, thanks a lot. We are very happy for you to represent our voice there. The floor is yours. You're muted.
Thank you. Hi, Eunice. Yes. Sorry, I came late, but
no worries.
On the spot. So yeah, I was in the Sharm el-Sheikh work program on indicators. It was a very interesting meeting because there were a lot of sharing about the challenges that different working groups across the targets that are facing in relation to the methodology they're going to be using to select indicators. So I think this was their decision, is between now and Baku, they will make a decision and present a unified methodology that they're gonna go through and validate in Baku. And this methodology will be used by all working groups for the different targets in relation to selecting indicators and providing a list of existing and new indicators in BELEM. Some of the interesting discussions were also around, are we also selecting qualitative indicators? How can we reflect context-based adaptation if we're not assessing some qualitative aspects of it? So there has been lots of discussions about that. And also the need of having global indicators, but also regional and context-specific indicators. This has been shared through different state parties and non-state parties with the experts. But I think the meeting was a learning process for the state parties, non-state parties, and the experts to understand how each of those actors are working and what's their expectations from this process. So I think it was very, very helpful for all to have a better understanding. Just to say, the meeting starts with experts sharing their kind of like preliminary results, looking at the indicators that were shared by the secretariat that were compiled into one Excel sheet. And each working group was sharing actually different methodologies. So this was like the main challenge in the beginning. It was clear that there's more communication that needs to happen between the different working group and the different experts in relation to the different thematic targets. Yeah, that's it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to respond in the chat or directly.
No, that's very, very good. And in fact, this is one of the areas where, first of all, adaptation and local level is already acknowledged in the Paris Agreement. So that's one of the reasons why we're so strong. But one of the nice things that, especially the Race to Resilience, Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda, the action community has been working on that. But this one is really the negotiator. So this is one of the good examples from the action community that could be information coming to the negotiators. And in fact, this was how we met with Salma, because of the Climate Heritage Network, engagement in this Race to Resilience and other processes. So let's see, because really quantification of adaptation has already been one of the most difficult challenges, significantly different than mitigation. So it's a huge task, momentous task, but I'm very happy that we are both part of it and also contributing to that. So let's be aware, these were technical level discussions, as you heard from our colleagues. It was workshops, experts, but then in Baku, there was a special meeting, the pre-COP, which is ministers were invited 1 month before the COP, so that they already prepared themselves what are the contentious topics, so that they can mandate their negotiators in between, so that the results are much more smoothly adopted or consensus are achieved. It's not an easy process. It is different than the previous meetings that you have heard, because it was a ministerial event, and Amelia from GCOM, and Firdaus from UCLG were representing us. I assume Firdaus is not here in the morning. She was with us, but today, in the afternoon, Amelia will be sharing. So Amelia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eunice. Yeah, and it was great to represent LGMA at COP, pre-COP last week. So thank you so much to those who drafted the position, as it was really fantastic to have this and be able to share and respond to the discussions. So constituencies are kind of able to observe parts of the meeting, and discussion covered mitigation, NCQG, and adaptation and carbon credits and the global stocktake. So it's quite broad, maybe indicating the various sticking points that are coming up in the negotiations. So broadly, there was quite limited access to the negotiations for constituencies, but I can give some readouts from what we did here. And we met with the COP29 presidency alongside other constituencies to try and push for greater access to the negotiations, and the result of that was a little disappointing. But Firdaus had a really good opportunity to speak on a panel during an official side event by the Troika, and that was a great opportunity to share the LGMA position. And there was also an opportunity to formally intervene with all parties present and listening in the closing plenary. So I think overall, kind of got the sense at the pre-COP that some key ministers were missing that could have maybe helped to push the agenda forward a bit more. And I think it sort of felt like major steps weren't being made in the way that perhaps they had at pre-COP in previous years. Although that said, there was more hope for an exclusive head of delegation meeting that was taking place over the weekend. So I have some more detailed notes I'm happy to share with anyone that's interested, but to briefly summarise what we did hear back from the different topic areas. So on mitigation, it feels like the political focus here is more for COP30, and at COP29 parties are more hoping to share sort of their best practices on mitigation. On the NCQG, it was really good to hear that the discussion and the aim is in sort of trillions, not billions. So this is reassuring, and it feels like a lot of political capital is being expended on this issue, which I think won't be a surprise to anyone. On adaptation, sort of keen to secure finance for this pillar, and very similar to what Madeline has shared, on loss and damage, there was a general welcoming of the new board member being appointed. And then lastly, there was discussion set aside for the on carbon markets and credits, which I think the Azerbaijani presidency is really keen to land and is seemingly spending quite a lot of time on. So I just wanted to make people aware of that in case it's an interest area. And also there was a bit of discussion about the global stock take and whether a meeting on this at COP should just be on finance or more broad. So yeah, if there's any questions, please do feel free to ping them in the chat, or you can reach me at GCOM.
Thank you, Amelia, and also as well as to Firdaus. I know it's particularly challenging to travel all these hours, kilometers, and then arrive in a room where you're not allowed in. But this is the nature of the process. There have been experiences, similar ones. Sometimes it was better in other ministerials, but I think it's good that they are aware of our presence there. And even more important, the informal dialogues in the corridors and other discussions. We were also making use of the connection from New York City to this process. And maybe one thing, in the Berlin-Petersburg dialogue, I was also intervening on the Troika discussion. You mentioned about Firdaus intervening in the Troika. I see Agat coming back from GCOM because there's also a plan to reach out to Troika, especially on CHAMP. So we can now make the connections between the dots and processes so that we reach the COP in the most effective way. And when we are there, we will see how we will use the existing opportunities. I want to conclude this round with the last meeting, which is a bit different than others because it is the mitigation work program, which is really a negotiation body, which is similar logic, that's interactive workshops by the nation negotiators. But the difference is that this year they particularly focused on urban systems. In June they focused on buildings. In Sharm they focused solely on urban systems because that is an important agenda. It's not anymore the cities or LGMA advocated for it, but it is the nations accepting that this is an agenda that they have to invest, they have to focus, and they have to show progress, or even ask what they want to progress, where they want to progress. This is particularly a new era because the last time this discussion was held was in 2013 in Warsaw on the way to Paris negotiations, the AWG negotiations, and that workshop I had the honor of being the keynote speaker there. It was particularly very difficult. So many governments were doing their best to avoid a discussion was on the table like that. They were considering this is a domestic issue, not in the interest of climate. But we have made so much progress in the last 10 years. Paris Agreement, Glasgow. You can see clearly in the meeting and the way it was designed that the parties are positively reporting from the global north, from the global south. We even had delegations who had been part of some representatives. We as LGMA were particularly very privileged to be a speaker and the experts in the opening session with Firdaus was there. She was there as a resource person throughout the three working groups, one of them. I was facilitator of it. We had a fantastic colleague, Nicolas Yu from Guangzhou, who was presenting the experience in China, which was a real good case of our bottom-up leadership for ambitious policies on mitigation. And Jasmine and Marta was in the room interacting in the breakout group. So it was really important. The important is that this is not the end. In fact, in Baku, in the first week, there will be a contact group which will discuss the outcome that will feed into the decision. So this is exactly the unique opportunity. It's officially expected that there will be a discussion on urban systems in the COP29 outcome. That is particularly important because that will be the beginning of the process. And as you heard from Leah, at the end of COP, we will have urbanization, which is an initiative of the presidency. And in between, we will even have a finance negotiation on Article 6.8 so that we can make the dots, just like we did in Dubai, in between those processes. Sometimes these protests don't know each other, don't acknowledge each other, but it is the LGMA strength that we can make the connection and make sure the outcome is strong enough. We have a couple of more agendas to go. First one, I want to invite my colleague Johanna from ICLEI's events team to share with us where are we in terms of our pavilion. And then we'll go to much more detailed discussions. And I would also like to invite Leah to come back on that one as well. But Johanna, please share with us what's going on in the COP29 multi-level action urbanization pavilion.
Great, thanks Eunice, and hi everybody. So what we wanted to show you here today is that we are progressing with pavilion planning, including the program. And this is sort of a high-level overview, but it is to show you and reassure you that we'll have an extensive program once again this year. So really from morning to evening, every day at COP. And hopefully by next week, we can also share an update that has a little bit more info also on the thematic diversity that we're really excited to be sharing. Also on the right-hand side here, you can see our partners. So we are very fortunate to once again be co-convening with UN Habitat. We had a very successful collaboration last year, so happy to be doing that again. And we have two new co-hosts this year. So Azerbaijan State Committee on Urban Planning and Architecture, or SCUPA, and the Zero Waste Foundation. And then you can also see a list of partners there that we're in consultations with. So as I said, this is already starting to show some of that diversity, and hopefully by next week we can share more with you, and very much looking forward to welcoming all of you who are coming in person to the pavilion. Eunice, did you want to add anything else to that?
A couple of points. First of all, thanks to all partners who really helped us to shape this agenda, and also especially co-hosts, the new ones. We have not worked with them before, which is also a good signal in terms of diversification of our outreach, but we also have continuity with our traditional partners. I think maybe one thing, we are still struggling with the logistics in terms of the physical planning, and we are this year a bit concerned that due to financial and technical challenges, we will not have live web streaming. That's one of the differences. But we will do our best, especially use different innovative reporting methodologies so that those who are not in person in Baku can still follow, especially through our newsletters and mailings. The other point, of course, let's remember this is a commercial space. We really are spending a lot of money, and we are grateful for our co-hosts and event partners. But even those who were not able to generate resources, we will do our best, especially in the sessions that will be led by ICLE, UN Habitat, and I'm sure all the other partners will do their best to engage other speakers, other partners, so that they don't feel excluded, they are not left behind. And we will use innovative discussions as well. For example, for the first time with UN Habitat, there under leadership of UN Habitat, there will be a workshop on NDCs in both weeks. Or we will discuss about town hall COPs, how we are advancing, so that we'd like to introduce these kind of innovative ideas as well. So with that, let's think about now. We are gradually shaping. Even this morning, between the webinar in the morning at 10 a.m. and today, we have received new information about the COP29 agenda. Let's remember, we are talking about two channels. The green zone, you don't have to have an accreditation to UNFCCC. It is mainly to the host cities, citizens, and communities, but even those who have agendas there as well. But we are much more focused on the blue zone, the UNFCCC space. We will have interventions. We will see a World Climate Action Summit. There will not be a local climate action summit, but there will be high-level party events. Leah can touch upon it. Marrakesh Partnership will have this regular, and next slide you will see the very brief agenda. Presidency, as we said, independent from Marrakesh Partnership, they are introducing several initiatives. This includes, once again, third year in a row, to host, like the practice in Egypt and Emirates, the third Urban and Climate Ministerial on the 20th of November at the Urbanization Day. One of the interesting and important things is that it's not in the official UNFCCC agenda yet, and it's not in the Marrakesh Partnership agenda. This is a unique presidency event, but we will make sure that this, together with the mitigation work program and other negotiation agenda items, this could have a long-lasting effect, especially with other initiatives that we've mentioned. We will have other pavilions. Some of them are canceled this year. Some of them are squeezed in shorter or smaller spaces. In that sense, we are still very happy that the multi-level action in urban leadership program is still 100 meters square with as much as features as possible. And there will be numerous UNFCCC side events across those 2 weeks. Here is the agenda that you see, the action agenda by the high-level champions. It does not necessarily have to follow the official priority themes of the presidency, but you will see on the 20th of November, there's already an urbanization transport day, which is the presidency agenda, and Marrakesh partnership is following or mirroring with human settlements. And this year there's even more integration. Maybe Leah, you can give us more updates on both the 20th of November, but also if there are any updates on what could be during the Leaders Summit. I know you are involved in a number of processes. Are you there, Leah? Yes, you are here.
Yes, I'm here. Happy to do that. I think for the 20th of November, I feel like a broken record. I probably talked about this before at one of these webinars, but maybe just a quick recap for everybody is this year, there will be a third ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change. It's actually not one ministerial meeting. It's going to be 5 ministerial meetings, meaning a high-level opening on multi-level climate action as an opportunity to take stock of where we are, also from COP28 on CHAMP, maybe getting a few more parties to endorse by then, which would be great. Of course, also bringing both ministers and mayors to that high-level opening. The second, and then this is followed by 4 high-level roundtables, also in the spirit that the COP29 presidency has demonstrated with their interest in both multi-level and multi-sectoral entry points, and in the interest of acknowledging that many of the conversations that are still happening sectorally. These roundtables give a nod to that. So that means 1 on buildings and construction, 1 on transport, urban transport and infrastructure, 1 on nature health and resilience with an agriculture element in it, and 1 on urban climate finance. What's fantastic is that all of these are organized with a really broad coalition of partners, UN agencies, intergovernmental organizations, Bloomberg with the support of LGMA, so it's and MDB. So it's really great to see such a broad coalition of partners coming together to support this, which is great. Another element is that the COP29 presidency is really trying to give lots of airtime also to mayors. So I think you've probably all seen communication from Yunus, and I've also been in touch with many of you directly to really make sure that we can give mayors and governors lots of airtime during the high-level opening, as well as the different roundtables. Invitations have been sent out, or as not for all of the roundtables, but for some of them they've been sent out. So we are hoping to get RSVPs slowly trickling in as well on that. If there's anybody you feel absolutely needs to be there, please do let me know. And in parallel, we are still trying to work on something for the high level for the World Climate Action Summit, but that is still to be confirmed, and that would be around the Continuity Coalition. There will be something around that Continuity Coalition, either as part of that the high level segment in the beginning of COP, or during the ministerial meeting directly, which is something that we're still ironing out the details. And just one last word on the pavilion. Really excited that we'll be able to make that happen this year. You saw the calendar. There's a lot of TBDs in there. We are really working hard to allocate all of these slots. But I do want to highlight we'll have probably around 50 events again this year. So really a space for lots of discussions, interactions on a broad variety of themes with partners, by our sponsors, workshops, panel events, briefings, and so on. So it's going to be a really vibrant space and home for cities and regions again at COP29. Back to you, Yunus. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to touch on.
Thank you, Leah. Maybe just to complement or one last point, we are also doing our best to ensure the complementarity role of the pavilion into the urbanization day. So if all goes okay, we can celebrate the closing of the ministerial in our home pavilion of multi-level action and urbanization, with also more like networking, but also celebrating outcomes, capturing what has been result of the day, and then leave with a positive momentum towards Brazil, including maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, already announcing our partnership for COP30 with the host country, Brazilian government, which we have been actively engaging through Minister of Cities, but also other Minister of Environment and Minister of Foreign Affairs, obviously. So that will be really our kickoff. So it's not the end, but it's just kicking off our journey towards Brazil. As you have heard, there are now more and more. We are this last 4 weeks is always like that. The agendas are clarified. Therefore, the coordination of the LGMA constituency is extremely valuable. So we have our LGMA tracker. You have received this through our mailings. We really recommend you to populate this information as fresh and as accurate as possible, so that especially like when we receive in requests like nomination of speakers with a different expertise, we have to respect the diversity in terms of gender, in terms of the typology, in terms of the global north and south. So the information compiled in our LGMA tracker is helping us to make sure LGMA voice is appropriately represented, not just as on the 20th of November, but the ministerials on finance, on just transition, the high-level agendas, and other intervention opportunities that LGMA has, including opening and closing of SPs, and high-level segment as well. So please make ourselves aware that who is coming when, and so that we can assign them in the most appropriate space. One final thing, we are aware this is since Dubai, we're opening a new era, more inclusive, more ambitious, and more diverse, a whole of society and whole of government. This also has to reflect at the local level. And since the beginning of this year, Daring cities have been discussing this idea of how we can move from local stock takes and combine it with the Dubai outcomes, the idea of a new generation of local to global action, which includes community level discussions through town halls, which includes initiatives like CHAMP, which is feeding into the NTCs, and these NTCs going to the UNFCCC, but LGMA, as you have seen, influencing all these discussions. And once a decision is adopted, back to our community, so that it's a yearly process and a cyclic process, including roles that national associations can also play. And we would like to discuss this tomorrow a bit more in detail in Daring cities, and we would like to make sure that when we meet in 20th of November, this could also give us a shape of how we would advance, because this is not just a year ahead. This will be the new model that we'd like to follow in this new NDC 3.0 model of engagement. Finally, the last couple of minutes, my colleagues in the biodiversity team are extremely excited and very busy, obviously, for the preparation of the 8th summit of subnational cities at the biodiversity COP. This time it's in Cali, and COP16. As dedicated space and time and venue is available for us, thanks to the very good collaboration with the Secretariat of CBD and the openness of the parties, which I must confess is much more than what we are seeing in the UNFCCC. So there are a lot of lessons learned from these different convention processes that they can help each other. But in essence, there will be a full day of discussions on partnership, on progress, and on peace, which is the theme of the COP in Cali. And we are very happy to have strong relations with the Colombian government, which we are hoping to bring new energy also to biodiversity, from biodiversity COP to Baku, particularly noting that Minister of Environment of Colombia is the former Environment Secretary of Bogota, like the current president of Colombia being the former mayor of Bogota, Gustavo Pedro. That will give us huge opportunities to rely on. And we believe this introducing nature as an element, and also in connection to the land degradation, which will be an issue in Riyadh, is now giving us the complete picture of that the Rio Convention is still one of the most powerful elements to ensure sustainability, including the outcome of the Summit of the Future as well. The agenda of local and regional governments is not just the summit. There will be the advisory board meetings of the committees. There will be side events. There will be a number of working sessions as well. So we are very looking forward to an exciting agenda in Cali and bringing the outcomes back to Baku, Riyadh, and then bring back to Bonn, so that we can review it during the Daring cities as well. I think we have more or less reached. This time we used our time better than the morning session, which we were a bit extended by 10 minutes. So I thank all our panelists and partners who have provided their inputs. I still would believe we can have a couple of minutes in case there are any partners who'd like to raise any points. I haven't seen too much on the chat box, but if I missed anything, Kata, please alert me if we had any points to be addressed.
No, all good. I think they were all
Good.
replied to by other people.
So
Questions.
if I can then wrap up 2 points for importance: endorsement of the LGMA constituency to our position and make it spread throughout your network. Second, populating the LGMA tracker so that we can respond to those invitations from the UNFCCC, UN Habitat, and others on the preparation for COP29. With that, I assume my colleagues in the room are also happy with what we have done so far. If there's anything left, I see Agat joining us. Any point from GCOM, Agat? We hope we covered most of the topics, but we'll stay in touch by emails. Especially the good news is that we still have for Baku 4 weeks ahead. In the next couple of weeks, what you will see that you will receive an agenda, draft agenda of the pavilion next week or so. We will have our October webinar, October bulletin coming on the 13th of October, which will be the moment where we can share most of our preparedness. And there will be several initiatives with additional engagement with the parties, especially on the champ and on the way towards the Troika. So that will be something that we'll share internally with the LGMA email channels. With this, I'd like to thank you all. Please stay safe and make sure you are providing all the requests that we have been asking from you. And have a nice day and days ahead.